Hi, my name is Pamela Strum, and today I would like to continue the subject of telepathy. So you might want to go watch my first video, if you haven't, of mental telepathy, artificial intelligence versus organic mental telepathy. And today I wish to continue because it got a lot of traction and comments with this subject of mental telepathy, a gift that I believe all of us have the capacity to tap into. And like many things that we do, it's a practice. So the more you practice it, the more you open yourself up to it, the more you cultivate this ability within you. And so I have a brief video today to give you some behind the scenes on what's happening with mental telepathy. So I drew a picture here to make it a little bit more obvious to you. If someone is in mental telepathy, you're having a particular thought, sometimes that thought has a strong emotion around it, but whatever that happens to be, there's a frequency to it. This is a frequency line that has a creation bubble. And the creation bubble is the thought, the emotion, and that gets put out into the collective. That concept, you have a thought and it's in the collective. And anyone can tune into the frequency that you've just put out into the collective. And so that's what this little red dot with the dashes is, someone picking up that frequency. And different frequencies can express different ways. So if there can be a certain frequency and it expresses as a color, it expresses as a harmonic, a sound, it is a thought creation that gets put into a third dimensional concept. So there are different ways to interpret the frequency. The frequency can be the emotion, and then other people can tune into that frequency and they will pick up this bubble of creation and they will interpret it through their own filter. So maybe someone would would create a work of art that expresses the frequency of what you were thinking. I'm going to give you an example of that because I have a friend of mine who I was talking to, and she's focusing on a particular animal. And I'm just going to make this up randomly. Let's say, to not give away her, for anyone who knows her personally, let's say she's thinking of a starfish and she's been working with starfish and for various things. And then in her work with children, a child was appreciating her and drew her a work of art of a starfish. Coincidence? Maybe, but maybe the child is tuning into her frequency and picking up something that she's been focusing upon quite strongly. So in mental telepathy, every single one of our thoughts, our emotions, we put into the collective. We tend to project it outside of ourselves, and other people tune in. So you might have heard, I think it's Alexander Graham Bell. I hope it's the invention of the phone, if I'm using this as an example. Within half an hour, a patent was submitted. Alexander Graham Bell submitted a patent half an hour as someone on the other side of the ocean, across the ocean, and for a telephone. So here are these thought bubbles that other people perceive and tune into, and they pick up whatever that creation happens to be, a consciousness creation. I draw it as a bubble. It's a frequency and it's holding certain concepts, thoughts, and other people can tune in. So you have these things that seem like miracles, like patents being filed within minutes of each other. And it seems like, how come everybody's talking about this or focusing on a certain subject? Because in the collective, we start to tune in, especially if the message gets reinforced. The more people thinking about it, the higher the emotional charge around a subject, and people tune in. So their natural abilities pick it up. So in playing with mental telepathy right off the bat, I'd like to say there are things that you can do. And it's important to stay in grounding your energy, connecting your energy to the earth. This helps you connect to like frequencies that are happening in this earthly realm. Also to quiet yourself. So the more you quiet yourself, or something you do to calm your mind, the easier it is for you to tune in. You're tuning into yourself. You can set the intention to receive certain information that has been projected into the collective, and you can pick up that information quite readily. And anything that you do that keeps you in an energetic flow and at ease. So let's say you get out in nature, or you're gardening, or you create works of art where your own energy is flowing, you're more likely to tune in to other frequencies. It's easier to perceive those frequencies. So in a practice of mental telepathy, which I shared with you, one thing that you end up doing is, if you're sending a message to a particular person, what ends up happening here, here's your frequency, here is your consciousness bubble of what you're thinking about, but you're sending that message to a specific person. So the person gets put into that consciousness bubble. So then when the person themselves, the red X person, tunes into a frequency, they perceive themselves within the creation. It's easier for their energy, that's part of the consciousness creation, to pick up your message, your thought, your emotion, and they tune into it much more easily. So in the first video, I had given an example of choosing some people with whom I've been practicing mental telepathy. And it's really handy for your own skill and fun in life and your own confidence. But what happens if we lose our capacity? Let's say, I had mentioned that our country's on a 3-grid system. Well, what if that all of a sudden gets shut down for a few days? How amazing would it be to be able to tune into our loved ones and get messages back and forth? So that might seem far-fetched, but we all do this all the time. We can read thoughts. So obviously, it's easier, if you're choosing to play with this, to tune into people who are actively in your life, perhaps in your household. So recently, over the past, I don't know, year, particularly with my husband, I'll say something that is not something that would be expected to say in that moment. And my husband would say to me, why did you just say that? And now I know what he's getting towards. Like, it's amazing you just said that. I was just thinking this. So what's happening is he's having a actual thought. I'm not necessarily put into it, but because I'm close to him and I know him so well, I'm picking up on his consciousness bubble, his thought. And so it's easy for me because I'm connected to my husband. So it's very easy for me to tune into what he's talking about. But here's the difference. It hasn't always been clear if the thought is my own thought, or if I'm picking up on someone else's thought, their consciousness bubble. Oftentimes when I say something and my husband asks why I've said it, it appears to me like it's my own thought. Which is why when I've been playing with telepathy with friends, I am intentionally sending them the message, or they're intentionally sending the message to me. It's not something that's simply being put out into the collective. So I'm tuning into their message to me, or they're tuning into my message to them within a thought consciousness creation bubble, or an emotion, because sometimes we have an emotion towards someone and we call them. We reach out to that person, and we've all had that experience. Oh, I'm amazed you just called me and I was just thinking of you. thinking of you, and you called me. So I'm going to give you an example. This past week, I had a friend of mine who I don't, I haven't been in touch with since October, and this person heavily popped into my mind. And I texted him and I said, is everything okay? You came into my mind so strongly. How's it going? How's the family? And he said, well, there must be something, because you're like the fourth person in 2 days who reached out to me saying basically the same thing. So it's interesting. So what's happening is someone's having a creation around my friend, and I'm clearly tuning into this thought form of my friend where they heavily pop into my awareness, and then I reach out to them as well, and then that pulls into other people who know this person, and we, a bunch of people start checking in to see how this person is doing. So it works. We do it all the time, whether we're aware of it or not. So let me give you a fun exercise to do to start playing with mental telepathy yourself. And I will say, in your practice, one of the most critical pieces of advice is to simply accept what comes to you without judgment. So what I mean by that is, if you're not tuning in and getting a message, getting an exact message, receiving anything, be merciful and kind to yourself. It is happening all of the time. It's practice. And I promise you, the more you practice, the more you tune in, the more you're setting the intention that you activate this ability within yourself. And then you can go ahead and do it. It helps if you get lots of sleep, lots of rest, eat healthy food, do things to decalcify your pineal gland, like drinking clean water, not consuming fluoride or chlorine. These are all things that skew our own energy and decrease our ability to tune in to energy and to stay in flow. So really take great care of yourself goes a long way to cultivating this ability. But one simple exercise that comes from a group that I used to use from Avatar, it's called Avatar Star's Edge. And they had a list where you're playing with someone. This is fun to do with children. And you write down, let's say, 4 colors. And you say, which color, and you focus upon one. And you say, well, which color am I focusing on now? And see what that person picks up, or what animal am I focusing on now? And see what it is they tune into. The trick I find with this one is, if you're putting out, you've created the list yourself, which, go ahead and please do. You have actually thought of all of these items. So the person who's tuning into, let's say, a particular color, once again, this is why don't negate yourself, because you might choose a different color, but this person actually thought of that color. And maybe that's what you're tuning into about that person. So it's a little tricky, but if you go with the flow of the game and simply do it for fun and you lighten it up, it's interesting to start to see, the more you play this game, that you can tune in and fine tune your skills of what someone else is focusing upon, what they're projecting in that frequency. Another exercise that helps with telepathy that I've seen someone do recently, Elizabeth April, is in her videos. Sometimes she'll have a mug of a beverage and she'll tell people to tune into it and what do they guess that she's drinking, and and simply accept what comes to them, whatever it happens to be. But there are these concrete things where you start to practice the skills of tuning into a particular person, tuning into a particular object, and that goes into the consciousness in the collective. And then you can start honing your skill of mental telepathy. One final piece, and I say this warning a lot. Life can get very loud, and these consciousness bubbles that we create can be quite cluttered, as opposed to living a quiet life of peace. Life can be very noisy. And once again, mainstream media, social media can generate for us thoughts on a mass level where many people are exposed to the thought, and they themselves generate that imagery, that thought process, that emotion, and they put it out into the collective, and then many people tune in and start creating this consciousness or adding to the creation of this consciousness bubble themselves. The reason I'm saying this as a caution is that if it's something beautiful and empowering that unifies us, that creates peace and love and abundance, it's a wonderful, wonderful ability. We all can do it. The more we focus on it, the more it puts power beyond into this consciousness bubble, the more people tune in and other people pick it up. But a lot of times lately, social media mainstream holds us at a very negatively polarized frequency, and maybe they're stoking it with fear, anxiety, illness, depression, dis-ease. And then if there's a lot of emotion behind it or visual imagery that's shocking or traumatic, we naturally then create this imagery and put it into the collective, and other people are tuning into this negatively polarized image and giving it more power. And when we are operating from a space of fear, I'm going to use fear as the main example, we tend to give our own power away. That's not going to help with our telepathy. We tend to bypass. So be absolutely aware, if you would like to cultivate your own capacity for mental telepathy, where you put your focus. What do you focus upon? When you catch yourself repeating images that aren't happening naturally from you, once again, ask, is this coming from me, or am I picking this up in the collective? Or is this an image that I saw from a movie, or something from a song, from a still shot of something that was scary, and now I'm repeating the imagery and putting that out into the collective, and then we start creating that. So use mental telepathy and the practice of mental telepathy to really put wonderful things out into the world, please. And with that, you'll notice that your own power potential goes up, and you have these abilities within you to activate, and you can send people messages, and they can tune in and send messages back to you, and you'll be able to tune in. So I've been playing with this for a while. It's my intention to come out with a couple of my friends with whom I've been practicing to share more with you on this subject. So I hope that this helps you work with some of the behind the scenes of mental telepathy. And once again, keep yourself open, keep yourself high vibe, like high frequency, and absolutely practice and have a lot of fun. All right, everybody, have a great day. I'm Pamela Strum from Princeton Healing House.